Hi, I'm Stephen Myers. I'm the Minister of Environment, Energy and Climate Action for Prince Edward Island, Canada.
I'm Derek Ellis, Director of the Sustainability Division for the Department of Environment, Energy and Climate Action.
Yeah, so we have kind of a three-pronged approach. Number one is we have climate targets of 2030 and 2040. So our 2030 target is our energy transition. So we hope to have that done by 2030, and by 2040 is to be at net zero. So that our targets are extremely aggressive. Second to that, or I guess coupled with that, is our attempt to start clean tech as an industry on Prince Edward Island. So we're partnering with the University of Prince Edward Island to offer clean tech programming through the university and a connection to the business community through it. So we're going to have a kind of the UPEI as a center of a business adventure into clean tech. And thirdly is our climate adaptation. We have a climate adaptation plan to address how we adapt for the climate that has already changed. So for us, being an island, it's how do we protect our land from erosion? How do we protect from major storms like hurricanes, which we have been seeing more of? And how do we make sure that people are ready in their own homes for hurricanes? So that's how we're approaching climate change in Prince Edward Island.
So we'll be interacting with the negotiating team from the Government of Canada, and Mr. Myers and Deputy Brad Colwill will be speaking on a panel as well. I think it's a joint discussion with the BC government and I believe Yukon, if I'm not mistaken, entitled Net Zero to Coast to Coast. So it's really focusing on how do we reach net zero. What is our path on PEI? How does that compare to BC's path to emissions reductions? And we expect it'll be a good discussion.
I think it's important. This is a worldwide discussion. Climate change is affecting us all, and it may be affecting in some cases it may be affecting undeveloped countries more than it's affecting developed countries, because they have the money and the resources that, because they've polluted the earth, basically, they are the ones, they have been the heavy polluters over the years. And Canada, for example, exports a lot of oil. So, I mean, we're super guilty of contributing to climate change. So I think it's important to have it in developing countries because there's a lot needs to be done. And I think that some of the wealth that has been created from developed countries needs to be shared. And I think that's one of the sticking points of COP is that I think climate financing is really important. I personally believe that we have to do more. So I think we need to showcase all parts of the world through COP over the years. And I think it's important that we focus on this as a target for all of us, not just a target for a few.
I think the nice part too is, every country has an equal place at the table to have those discussions. So it's not just the wealthy countries that are represented. The developing countries, especially those that are seeing those impacts now, this is their opportunity to have their voices heard. So I think it's important that, everyone's around that table and having that discussion.
I think we have a lot to do. I think that even Canada's targets are superficial at best. I mean, I honestly don't know that we've seen a lot of action in Canada. There's been a lot of talk. And ourselves as a province, we have aggressive targets, and some of the other provinces are starting to move that way. But speaking strictly from a Canada point of view, I think that we need to do more. And I mean, if we're not following through with what we promised in 2015, then it's easy to see why other countries aren't. I think that developed countries need to be leaders in this file, and they haven't been.
Yeah, interesting too, right? When the minister took over the environment file, there was a change to the name of the department, and it's Environment, Energy and Climate Action. So really our department's focused on acting on climate change. We've done, I think, a lot of, measuring the impacts, forecasting emissions, but we're really trying to lead the way in Canada on how do you act and actually reduce those emissions. We know the issue. And we think we know a lot of the solutions. We have those at our fingertips. So it's at this point, it's time to act and act quickly.
That's a really good question. I mean, I think what we've seen here recently, Prince Edward Island was hit by the hardest hurricane to ever hit Canada here this fall. So the highest winds ever in Canada were in Prince Edward Island just a month ago. And now when we talk about climate change, suddenly everybody realizes that it has already impacted us. We are already facing it. We've lost hundreds of meters of shoreline. We've lost 40% of the trees on our island. So it's terrible that terrible things have to happen, but as terrible things happen closer to home, people are starting to realize that, hey, we're going to be impacted by this, and we have to change. I don't know that we can change quick enough to save the impacts, and obviously we can't, but the fact that we can adapt for climate change and the fact that we can at least try to keep it from getting worse is starting to sink in. So there's probably easier ways to do it than maybe Derek has the easier ways, but we're doing it the tough way in Canada right now. There was a wildfire in BC that burned down like a quarter of the forest. It was and that was attributed to climate change. We've had some of the hottest temperatures in Canada ever, like in the 40 degrees Celsius range. And we're not accustomed to that, we're not ready for it, and we can't survive like that because we don't have the type of infrastructures that warmer cities have. We don't have places for people to go, and now people are starting to move their feet, but I guess maybe you can answer it better than I can.
No, I think it's a good answer. I mean, there's a lot of noise around the issue as well, and it's a heavily politicized topic, right? So I think it's really important to stick to the facts on climate change, and folks are climate change deniers. It's time to do some homework on that one. I think one of the other challenges, is that the climate's changing slowly. So those types of events, like the one we just saw, are reminders. The one on PEI, Hurricane Fiona, are reminders that it is happening. It's something we need to address. We saw the financial impacts, the social impacts, all of the above, the environmental impacts, the coastal erosion on the North Shore. So I think islanders on PEI really understand that it's happening. But that's not necessarily the case everywhere, and especially in those areas where there's a lot of misinformation and political interference on the topic.
We have a great advantage right now in Prince Edward Island through some of the things that have happened that are negative. So the negative can become a positive as far as seeing. So we have a whole group of young people who've seen. We had a huge sand dune system on our North Shore that's gone, and lots of children would grow up swimming at those beaches that they can see firsthand. So if you're looking for real life experience, in some cases you almost have to see or be able to see through pictures or videos. This is what it looked like before, and this is what it looked like afterwards, to really show how detrimental some of the outcomes can be. There's lots of examples throughout the world of flooding and high temperatures and low temperatures and high winds and high rains and those types of things. I honestly believe that because of the mix that we have cities, we have rural areas, we have coastal areas, we are an island. We have lots of things that we can solve through Derek's shop that are exportable to anywhere in the world freely. I think that we can be leaders in the file. I think that we can be leaders in clean tech. I think that because of the size and proximity of Prince Edward Island, we can be leaders in energy transition and new types of energy and new types of storage and smart cities and those types of things that are exportable to big cities like Cairo. I mean, for us, our biggest city has 40,000 people. Our whole island has 162,000 people. So we're very, very small, but we can change really rapidly because we're small. So when we look at some of the things that we can do, we want to be leaders. The reason we're in Egypt is we're going to speak at the climate conference, and we're going to speak there because we want people to know who we are and what we're doing. We want people to be able to say, we can partner with you, or we have ideas, or can you share your solutions with us? And we're willing to share our solutions. So for me, I think that Canada has a long way to go to try to be those leaders. Canada as a country could be leaders in this file if they chose to be, but they haven't yet.
Right, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that it's really important to focus on the science and the facts around climate change. I think it's also important that you do marry these academic programs with real world problems, right? We still don't have all the solutions that we need to reduce emissions sufficiently over the next few decades. So we're going to need a workforce to be trained and to be interested and passionate about this and innovative. And I think we can't do that successfully without a workforce like that. We don't have that at our fingertips either. So I think having programs that include real world experience, real world projects and internships, consulting projects, so that the students can be immersed in that world, have contacts in that world when they graduate and join the workforce as quickly as possible and successfully as possible. And I think that's a win. So I know when I was looking for graduate degrees on the topic, I was looking for a package like that, where I could get both the academic side but the real world experience. And I think that's really important to the students that are shopping around for, whether it's an undergrad, master's, PhD, you name it. They'd like to make an impact on the ground, and they're looking for the most effective program that can help them do that.